Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Simplifying the Patient Experience in a Complex Environment, a CHI Case Study. I am Brian Zimmerman with Becker's Hospital Review. We'll begin today's webinar with a presentation and we'll have time at the end of the hour for a question and answer session. You can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar by typing them into the Q&A box you see on your screen. We're looking forward to hearing your questions. Today's session is being recorded and will be available after the event. You can use the same link you used to log into today's webinar to access the recording. At this time, it is now my pleasure to start today's webinar by introducing our presenters. Leslie Richard is Assistant Vice President of Revenue Cycle at Catholic Health Initiatives, now Common Spirit Health, where she is responsible for setting national direction, policies, and strategies to create a high-performing revenue cycle. She has more than 25 years of healthcare revenue cycle experience, including roles at TransUnion Healthcare, Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth Health System, and Centura Health in Denver. John Talaga is Executive Vice President of Healthcare at Flywire, a leader in responsive payment solutions that are changing the way hospitals engage with patients and collect out-of-pocket balances. With more than 20 years of healthcare payment experience, John has partnered with hundreds of healthcare providers to develop and innovate patient billing and payment solutions. At this time, I'm pleased to turn the floor over to John to begin today's presentation.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you everybody for joining and participating in this. Really excited to be working with Leslie on this, and we're going to go through just quick learning objectives and agenda. We're going to examine some of the impacts in the industry, some of which will be familiar, and then some, I think, hopefully will be new. And then we're also going to review some patient survey data that we recently published with payments.com on some of the attitudes in terms of what payments or patients are looking for in terms of paying their healthcare bills. Then Leslie is going to go through a CHI case study in terms of how she has addressed and her team has addressed the patient experience for billing and payment. And then we'll throughout look at strategic methods to track performance, measure performance and results and things like that. So I'm going to start by just moving to looking at some of these industry trends. And I think looking at the list, a lot of the people on this list are very familiar with seeing these trends. And they are more common now because the deductibles and in terms of the level and percentage of patient responsibility for net patient revenue has increased so much that this has become really a board-level conversation in terms of what to do about collecting from patients. And it's not surprising because we have other industries that are effectively more than ever driving change in behavior for consumers, which are also patients. Whether it's ordering an Uber and then paying for it without even thinking about it, or even searching and scheduling for a flight, as well as getting your records of what you've done in the past and then making payments as well. McKinsey did an interesting study which sort of dispelled the myth that consumers look at healthcare services different than other industries. And when you look at from what the consumer's perspective is, they really do look for and expect the same things. While we in the industry understand the differences, consumers really are looking for similar services that they get from other industries. And one just comment is in the last 10 years, we've seen more than ever a change in healthcare revenue cycle, really by the level of leadership in terms of the focus on the patient side. It used to be 10% and you'd collect what you could and then you'd write the rest off. But really the focus on this has really been different to the point where there's technology companies like ourselves and there's large health systems like Leslie's, and then you've got even smaller mid-sized hospitals where there's this industry vision starting to form that we're seeing where you're going to start seeing a lot of different changes where the expectation of normal in healthcare is going to be coming a lot sooner than it has in the past and moving faster. But as we go through this, I think it's important to come back to what really is different about healthcare, right? So we know that in healthcare, there are unlimited, unplanned expenses. So these are not things that patients or consumers are going out to buy. With deductibles up by 25% in the last 5 years and continuing to grow, the average consumer with a $400 balance, half of those consumers struggle to pay that amount. And with the average self-pay balance at a health system being almost $1,000, you have this natural gap of affordability for the patient. And this leads to, of course, a direct downstream impact on the hospitals in terms of collectability. If the patient is having difficulty affording it, and really in some cases even understanding the process, then there's going to be a collection rate that we've had in the past that's not going to be sustainable with the level that percentage that of the error. So one thing I want to share, we did a roundtable at the Becker's conference 2 weeks ago, and one of the VPs of revenue cycle that were in the room made a really interesting and colorful comment. He said that, it's like Netflix versus Amazon Prime. He said Amazon has so many choices and there's so many things to look at. I turn it off and I don't engage. Whereas Netflix remembers what I've done and is able to engage me and make suggestions as to what it is that I need to watch, and it's easier for me to use and easier for me to engage in. So he said that healthcare payments needs to be less like Amazon Prime and more like Netflix. So I think that's kind of an easy and good consumer way of looking at this, because I happen to agree with them. When we look at the patient survey, just going through a few key stats, this is a comprehensive survey that we did with payments. It used U.S. Census Bureau information of income, education, employment status, age, and all of this was taken into effect of 3,000 respondents that it had healthcare expenses due and payments due in the last year. So from this information, all I wanted to do is call out some of the key takeaways and findings. And when you look at the first one, first of all, how do Americans pay for healthcare? Well, 90% of those patients, especially those that have affordability concerns, want the option of paying on a payment plan. And that may not be too surprising, but the problem that we'll get into a little bit is it's not easily accessible. Payment plans aren't accessible to the consumers, while 90% want them or want some of them. The other part of this is how do payment plans perform? Because in the past, I think a lot of hospitals were really resistant or reluctant to make payment plans more of an offer, as opposed to they were using them as a last resort. So if a patient were to call, they would negotiate a plan. That was more the traditional way. And so part of the problem was we don't want to get on plans where it's going to take a really long time to get paid. And then secondly, we don't want to get them on a plan because what if they stop paying? But really, we see that payment plans perform very well strategically. So 72% of the respondents said, well, yeah, I'm going to pay my plan on time, whereas 23% actually said they would pay it off early. So the mindset of those activating plans or that are on plans fully intend to pay. While there are some defaults, there's ways to help avoid that. Another key takeaway is timing is everything. So this is one of the most important things I think that came from the survey. Some of it was surprising, but 57% of the respondents said they want a payment plan offered to them at the time of service or before service. So that means when I want you to give me an estimate of what I'm going to owe, and then if it's an amount that's more than I can pay, I want to be offered and set up a payment plan at that time. The other 36%, another 36%, want a payment plan offered on their balance after adjudication and on their first statement. And then there's only 7% that prefer to negotiate with the CSR rep. Most of healthcare, and this is changing fast, but most of healthcare is serving the 7%, essentially allowing plans, even making it easy to go online to activate certain plans, but it's very reactive, and it's causing or requiring the patient to proactively go out and seek that plan. We're going to get into that a little bit with Leslie's case study. And then also payment flexibility. So what matters? So there's still a lot of patients that want paper bills, right? Matter of fact, 50% still prefer paper statements. And when we were at the round table, just to reference that again, I asked the question to everyone. I said, what is the number one reason why patients still want paper bills? And we got a couple of interesting answers, but the number one reason is because they want to use it as a payment reminder. Because when I go on a regular basis to certain retailers or places where I'm making payments, that's a normal monthly thing for me, and I can get online and I know where to go for it, whereas healthcare isn't. It's something that they may have services once, they don't expect to come back, and going online is the challenge because I just want to be reminded when I owe that balance, which to me is a one-time payment as a consumer. There is a demographic shift going on where that is dramatically changing, but there's still a lot of paper statements out there, as we know. And then the other part of this is fees change behavior. So the survey respondents looked at if there was a fee on a payment plan installment versus no fee for making a payment in full, how would you respond? And 66% would try to pay the debt off early if there was a fee, if at all possible. So the other part is they plan to make payments according to the schedule, 31%. So what we're seeing is a blend, and again, Leslie will go into this as well on her case study, but we're seeing a kind of a blended response saying, well, I'm going to pay this off early to avoid payment plans, which is starting fees will change behavior of how patients will look at that and create an incentive for them to pay sooner or not, or pay in full completely. So that's some of the key takeaways. But before we get into the case study, I just wanted to touch on, so what does a modern approach to patient financial care really look like, right? So taking these patient requirements or preferences, and then you look at the provider problems and challenges, what does this look like? Well, the first part of this is to enhance the engagement and payment approach by first creating a consolidated monthly statement. What that means is effectively taking all the different services that in many cases, depending on the system you use, are getting billed on separate invoices, or you go online with separate logins, bringing these together so there's one balance for the guarantor across the system. There's one balance you're asking to be paid for, and then if you set up a plan, there's one payment plan. So the guiding principle is one payment plan across a guarantor. The second is segmentation, right? Is segmenting that ability to pay for that patient, understanding historically how they paid the hospital, and understanding if there's no history, what their ability to pay is so that you can tailor offers to that patient. So if I owe $1,000, I'm able to afford $150 a month. There's enough information out there today to be able to pinpoint that very closely so you can start billing the patient what they can afford as opposed to billing them something that's out of their range. And then the other part is self-service guardrails. So allowing the patients to self-serve, but keeping it within the guardrails of what the hospital is willing to offer or accept. So you can do self-service, but it doesn't mean it's self-directed, where the patients are signing up for whatever they want. It's making sure that it's within those guardrails of the hospital. The part is the provider provide the patients with options, right? So then it's how do they want to engage? So we should have text, we should have email, we should have paper statements. It shouldn't matter in terms of how the patient wants to read their information. And then also how they pay. So whether it's any credit card that you would offer, Discover, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or electronic check, or even paper check through the lockbox. So multiple ways for a patient to be able to pay as well. And then intelligent notifications. So driving that activity by status and driving notifications by activity as opposed to the traditional dunning. So when something happens and when activity takes place of activating a plan or something similar, that there's communication going out to the patient at that time as opposed to just the standard every 30 days. Another side of this is, of course, we got to drive to digital, right? So while lots of patients still want paper statements, we have to have incentives and ways to make it, give them a reason to move to digital. And by the way, the number one reason that the reason for driving to digital is not they want to go green. So unfortunately, people are not motivated by the environment, unfortunately, to go to digital. They're more motivated by convenience. So if you look at 2015 with health systems, 18% were digital, whereas by 2019 now, 40% are digital. That's probably low at some hospitals and maybe high at other hospitals, but it's expected in the next 3 to 5 years to double again. So we could potentially be at 80% in the next 3 to 5 years. So we are seeing that dramatic demographic shift as well as conveniences that consumers are moving quickly. But putting card on file, paying without logging in, allowing self-service offline, and intelligent notifications all become sort of table stakes to be able to communicate with those patients digitally. And then the maximizing the payment plan yield. So if we look at that survey that we went through, and you look at how much of what the patients are looking for, so payment plans become important for an affordability issue. And how do we maximize or optimize the payment plan yield is really looking at offering and activating plans at pre-service from an estimate. So So that's something really critical for these patients. So we figure out how we pull together the estimate and activating payment plans off that estimate, but then also making it connect with when it becomes self-pay. The other is allowing offline self-service. So if I want to activate a payment plan, don't make me call, right? But don't make me go online if I don't want to either. So I should be able to write a check off what you're allowing on that offer without hands-free, without making a phone call to be able to activate that plan. And then also proactively combining new balances into existing plans. So what happens in healthcare, there's pullbacks, there's late charges, there's new services, there's all this noise that happens during a payment plan. So there has to be a way to automatically manage that workflow to add new balances to an existing plan. So it really becomes like a subscription model, if you will, go back to the Netflix, is I know that if I go to CHI Health, I know that I'm going to be able to pay $150 a month. And if I'm paying $150 a month, then I don't have any reason to prevent myself or my family from going in for care, and I know I can afford it. And then maintaining existing installment amounts. So this is important, again, from the payment plan yield perspective, because if I'm on a plan for $150 a month, and if we're targeting their affordability as $150 a month, and I have new services, then that $150 should be staying where it is, and the term should be increasing. But again, within the guardrails of the hospital. So there has to be algorithms to be able to keep it within the hospital, but really focusing on keeping that installment monthly amount, what the patient's both used to paying and, of course, what they can afford. And then drive card on file. So the number one reason or way to prevent people from defaulting off their plans is to be on auto pay. So they don't have to think about it, right? Every month it charges, they get a receipt. And the easiest way to be able to take payments, even for patients that may not be on auto pay, recurrent auto payments, is having the card on file. So it should be a standard to be keeping that card on file. You're only capturing the card once for PCI purposes, but making it available throughout the health system, regardless of where they're paying, in person or over the phone or online. And then last is enabling authorized users. So more and more, there's, how can friends and family help when somebody has an illness that was surprising and it's critical, is how can they help, is one of those ways is to help pay. So open up the ability to pay with friends and family to be able to pay portions of the monthly payment plan. Okay, and then one more slide, and then I'm going to turn it over to Leslie for her case study. Is the other part of this, when you pull all this together, the most important thing is having a level of enhanced reporting and metric management. So if we're looking at and managing all this new activity automated on payment plans, what kind of performance is it driving? What's the yield? So looking at the average installment and what the collection rates are, by balance ranges, and where's the default, cancellation, and how the plan's completed. So taking all this information and understanding it, being able to react to it as well. So what changes should we make in the guidelines? What should we be doing differently to more of a conversion rate, get more patients that are ending up in bad debt to accept these plans? Maybe they need to be tweaked. So all of this comes into play to measure performance, but also to tweak and continue to improve the service and engagement with the patient. Okay. All right, Leslie, turn it over to you for the case study.
Thanks, John. Thank you all. So CHI is now part of Common Spirit Health, and for today's presentation, I'm going to talk about the CHI side. So to understand CHI, I think you need to know that we've got about 100 hospitals. We're in 19 states. We've got many, many different markets, and we have multiple EMRs. And so when you think about where you are, we've got Epic, we've got Meditech, we've got Cerner with a McKesson Star background, we've got CPSI, we have Envision, we have every instance of all of the main EMRs that are out there. So implementing anything here is complicated. It's got lots of unique industry abnormalities. So we went live with Flywire in March of 2018. And so it's important to understand, why do we do this? We also, in the midst of our complexity, outsource our revenue cycle to Conifer Health. And so given the foundation that I've described, when you have multiple EMRs, you outsource your revenue cycle, and you lack standardization, then you lack the control of the patient statements. You have a fragmented online payment ability. And in that scenario, we actually had our patients had to call into our call centers to set up payment plans. And so you can imagine what that's like, especially for the younger generation that has to sit on hold. They're just not going to do it. And so we're missing a huge opportunity. We had limited information on our metrics, and we really wanted to not only improve our collection opportunity, but improve the patient experience. And so we put the patient at the center and built the program around them. So our strategic objectives were to enhance our financial journey with a personalized patient experience. And what does that mean? It means that one size doesn't fit all. And so we wanted to have a way that you had online options, you had mail a check-in option, but you knew every sort of option that was available to you up front. And so you didn't have to query to find out what your options were. And so that really was part of what drove us through this journey. We wanted to standardize our approach, so it didn't matter if you were on Epic or Meditech or Star or any of those. Your patient experience was going to be the same. And so your statements would look the same, your options would be the same, and so from a connection to the community, it was all alike. We talk about a retail-like experience, and so healthcare has never really mastered that. We have a very regimented approach. You contact a patient in advance of service. You schedule them, you pre-reg them, you talk to them about their financial responsibility, then they come in, you either have a kiosk or you check them in, and everything has a step. And so for a patient to navigate through all our steps, it's not intuitive, and it's not retail-like, and it's not what patients expect. And they want to be able to treat healthcare like they do any of the other industries that they engage with. John talked about Uber and Netflix and Amazon Prime, and you think about your experience when you book a vacation. You go online, you book your travel, you have your mobile app, your boarding pass is on there, you go to a hotel, you've got a digital key, everything is made at the convenience for you, and you don't have to stop and engage with a person unless you choose to. And we have a long way to go for healthcare to get there. But that's what's top of mind for us is why not? Why not make it more retail-like? We want patients to be able to ebb and flow through our healthcare financial journey with ease. We don't want to put up barriers. We don't want to put up decision points where they have to know or ask questions about what to do. And we want it to be seamless. And so we're trying to maximize our innovation, use our intelligence, customize our approach so that we can enhance the patient journey. So we started out with improving the statement design. I mean, it seems pretty basic. I think most industries, healthcare systems have already done that. We were allowing the EMRs to determine, and so it had key information, but it wasn't engaging. We wanted to provide options up front. And so on that statement, we wanted to tell the patient, here's how to engage with us. Here are your options. And we wanted to make it as automated as we could. Driving the mobile and online access was important to us. We wanted to get patients out of our call centers and into engaging with us differently. And that's important on multiple levels. It's important because it stops the wait times that is frustrating to a patient, and it provides them with a lot more options. So with that, we developed this strategic workflow. We pulled in all of our business partners so we could gain alignment. So we had our Conifer team, we had our banking team, we had our online teams, we have our portal teams, the Flywire team. We all came together to design what this would look like, and everybody knew their part to play in that. We wanted to increase the transparency, and with all of that, we wanted to ensure that we had PCI compliance, so that we didn't do anything that would put us at risk. So we qualify patients for payment plans. We tailor their offer. And this is something that I want to talk about a little bit later about tailoring their offer. We engage them to self-activate and manage and automate their account changes. So part of it is reaching the patient. And so if you don't have the talk over, if you aren't speaking to them about this, you want to engage them in a way that creates that reaction. And that was important for us to find a way to reach all generations of patients. So we started out this journey with a real focus on the statement generation, post-bill, and you're going to get this new design, you're going to get these new options, all of these things are going to come your way. And then we started to challenge, why would we wait that long? Why would we wait until after the bill? Why couldn't we do this sooner? And all of the regulations that are coming out about price transparency, and people are checking the box, I put my charges online, I've met the bill requirements, but have you met the patient's requirements? Have you met them where they want to be? Do your charges really matter to them? And those were the things that we wanted to challenge ourselves with. And so we decided to move this whole process upstream. And so we pulled in another group. Now it's a different group of people. We've got schedulers and we have pre-reg people, and we're bringing in our estimation partner, and we're engaging at a different level that says, what if we did this at the point of estimation? What if a patient knew that they had options at the point of estimate, and they could actually set this up and go into their care knowing that they didn't have any financial strings at the end? There was full transparency. And so that's what this journey is about. This is about us setting up estimation to payment plans, to informing patients so that they can activate their options in advance of service. And this does have a lot more legal rules and all of that you have to consider. But we're really challenging the status quo of what it would be like if it was you. What would you want? And most of us would feel better if we knew that we didn't have to worry about that bill that's going to come in the mail, because we already have a plan. And even if we have to adjust that plan because our estimate and our bill were a little off, we still have a plan. So we've got process automation. And with that, we've got the pre-service estimate and we have the post-service balance. This information goes into Flywire where we have the segmentation, we've got balance history, and the determination if you qualify or if you don't qualify for a plan. You can get a pay in full statement or you can get a payment plan offer. And this was another thing that some of our divisions were struggling with, is they had always asked for the full payment amount up front. And so they were worried that their point-of-service collections were going to go down if a payment plan was offered in advance. And so we've worked through that. And so we start off with a full offer, I mean, you start off with, here's your patient responsibility. And then when the patient's unable to pay that, you have options. All of these are the same mobile app, online, all of the same methods that a patient can engage with us. So John talked about, at a guarantor level, which was really, really key to us. We didn't want to manage our experience through individual charges. I use the example of, you go through the toll booth, and what if you got a bill every time you went through a toll booth? What if you got a Visa statement every time you made a charge? We want the new charges to go into an existing balance, and then if we have to adjust the offer, we'll adjust the offer. But we don't want to get into this kind of charge-based approach to connecting with our patients. So we are doing it at a guarantor level, and we're engaging with them more at a monthly basis. All of this information we send back into the EMRs, and so that we've got one source of truth, and we also have the ability then to have the same view no matter where you were sitting. So if we've got customer service folks that are in Texas and we've got patients that are paying in Fargo, then they can all see what's happening. And again, PCI compliant. So we have a consolidated statement offer. This is similar to the slide that John had, where it just kind of goes into, here's a different look and feel. And this is meant to help patients to understand right off the beginning, to say, I know what my options are. And I'll tell you, my husband got a bill, and he got a bill, it was, let's say it's $2,500, and he's like, I don't want to pay them $2,500. And he said, but I don't know what to do. And I said, well, you have to call him. And you'll have to talk to him about how many monthly installments you can make. And he's like, they're only open from 8 to 5. When am I supposed to call them? And so he called, and he sat on hold, and he finally got them, and they offered him 4 months of payment installments and all those things. But he wouldn't have had to do that had this been his statement offer, because he would have known what monthly payment he could have made, and he could have gone online, and he could have signed up for it. So that's changing the patient experience. It's also changing the way that patients interact with us. The ease of use of making it outside of business hours to make it at their convenience will engage them at a different level. So you can see we've got account activity on here, and we've got the monthly amounts and the pay in full. We've got a multi-modal engagement with mobile, so you don't have to go online on a computer. You can go online off of your phone, and then your offers are activated, and you actually get a confirmation that says that you have been placed on a monthly payment plan. And so it's kind of that beginning and end, right? I mean, it's not leaving it up to chance that you think you signed up for a payment plan. It's the confirmation that you have. So with that, we went from 0 to 70% of patient-activated payment plans, meaning that all of our payment plans before we implemented this had to have a customer service rep to activate them. It's not that our patients weren't on payment plans, it's that they could not self-activate. We have control over our statements and our online experience. We have seen an increase in self-pay cash collected. I mean, we're roughly running about $23 million a month through our payment plans. So, I mean, it's definitely improved. We've got our terms controllable at around 12 months. Our default rate is down. We have seen a significant increase in online payments. We have improved metrics, and our patients have grown to not only accept it, but embrace it. And this is where we wanted our patients to go, and why we took the post bill and moved it upstream, because we're changing the way our patients engage, and that way when we have the estimation component of it, they've grown to expect that. So we talked a little bit about the pre-service payment plans. This is our journey forward, and this is where we want to go in creating that transparency, where we're not just checking the box to meet the regulation, where we're really connecting with our patients differently. So the payment options would be the same. They would get them off of the estimate instead of off of the bill. They would be presented with multiple options. And we do have tests that the estimates just aren't there, right? I mean, you have a really complicated case, or you have more of a medical in nature than a procedure in nature. And so we do have a make a down payment where it's more of a flat amount than an estimated amount. The last kind of stage of our journey is our financing option. And with that, we wanted to be able to keep the patient engaged and meet them where they are. So if you had a patient responsibility that would make your payment plan offer longer than, say, a 12-month period, since that's our average, we wanted to be able to provide an extended payment plan, and not going the traditional route of having the patient sign up for a loan or anything like that. We want to extend it through our same existing process. And so we're partnering with our banks and through Flywire and Conifer and all of our business partners to be able to say, at this point, the patient moves from a traditional payment plan to an extended payment plan, and we work through the financing options of that. By offering it through an extended line of credit, we keep the patient engaged in our system, and their journey is seamless. And so it's not like when you buy a house and 3 months later they've sold your mortgage. We want to keep them. We want them to sign up once and stay with us. So that's our journey. That's our patient experience. That's us taking it from post-bill, improving the way that we engage with patients, from a look and feel, away from options, giving them multiple ways to connect with us, to figuring out how we can tell our story without having to talk. So letting our documents, letting our interaction through mobile, letting our online, all of those things that you would normally have a voiceover with, allowing them to engage when it's convenient for them, and having it be multi-generational so that we don't have one size fits all. We're seeing great results. Our patients are responding well. Our results are there. Our financial results are showing it. And so it gives us confidence that we are on the right strategy, and we'll continue to challenge ourselves to put the patient first and figure out ways to connect that is honoring and meaningful to them. So, John, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Leslie. And I think, Brian, you were going to, if there's any questions, I think that was the next step.
Yep, we'll begin the Q&A session now. So just thank you, Leslie and John, for that great presentation. And as we stated, we will now begin today's question and answer session. Please submit any questions you have by typing them into the Q&A box you see on your dashboard, and we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. We've already had a bunch of great questions come in, and we'll start with this one. This attendee asks, are these set up according to the balance based on the insurance allowable amount or at a discounted rate?
Leslie, do you want to take that one?
So yes, sure. So we have the balance is based upon the patient responsibility. So it could be the allowable with a discount, it could be just the allowable, but it's what our EMRs determine when they net it to patient responsibility.
I think the only exception to that. I'm sorry. The only
John, go ahead.
Is when it's an estimate, right? You know, obviously, I mean, that's probably obvious, but the estimate will carry forward when it becomes patient responsibility. Then it's modified at that time if it's on a payment plan to modify the term.
Great. Thank you both for those clarifications there. The next question we have is, did you attach a fee to set up the payment plans?
Do we attach a fee to the payment plans? Is that the question?
Yeah, I think as an initial setup fee, I think is what the attendee's getting at.
I think you're talking service fee.
So the fee that we have that's attached to the payment plan is a monthly service fee. So we do attach that to all of our payment plans. And what we found with that is that it makes the patient think about how long do you want this payment plan to be. So can I afford $100 for 10 months with a service fee that's included for the 10 months, or should I put it in at $125 and have a shorter monthly fee? So it really puts them in control of what they're looking for. But yes, we did start with a fee and we continue to use the fee.
Great, thank you for that. And another question here. So do you offer any prompt pay discounts for PIF, I believe paid in full, right?
So we are absolutely exploring that at this time. What was challenging on the CHI front is that our financial assistance policy is 100% discount up to 300% of the FPL. And so to offer a prompt pay discount without having a sliding scale in your financial assistance policy made that difficult, if not impossible. So our policy is up for renewal, and with that, we are proposing to put in a prompt pay discount.
Great. And the next question we have here is about extended payment plans. So extended payment plans must qualify for the extension. That's how the attendee phrased it. Does that make sense?
It does. So right now what we're looking at is really time-based, and so the thought that we have around the extended payment plan is balance and timing. So if your balance takes you to a longer payment plan, then we would offer the extension. And from a qualification standpoint, you would stay on your current payment plan for X amount of months. So let's just say you stayed on your current payment plan for 9 months, and at the 9-month mark, you move to extended. The qualification to go to extended would be that you were in good standing for your initial 9 months of payment plans. And so it's not that we're going out and determining that your credit score is X or anything like that. It really is on your payment plan history.
Thanks for offering those helpful details. And the next question here is, how is a patient informed that the actual bill amount is different than the estimate? So John can help me with this one, but we would do that through the post-bill statement. So you'd have your estimate amount and then your post-bill that would then clarify the variance between them. So John, I don't know if you want to take that and explain it further.
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to kind of describe it, because there's lots of different rules around it, is the guidelines that we talked about earlier, which drives the offers and just sort of the ongoing terms of the plans within the guardrails of CHI. It becomes part of the guidelines, right? So if a patient signs up and accepts a payment plan for a $1,000 estimate, $100 a month, they make 2 payments, they owe $800 remaining. That patient responsibility then, let's say, becomes $1,000. It was off by a certain percentage. Then, based on the percentage, it either just tells the patient it's adjusted, it's adjudicated, and they continue with their plan, or if it's outside a certain range, then they would essentially get a new offer, which gives them new options to choose from.
Great, thank you both. And we've had a bunch of great questions come in, some really great audience engagement. So the next question we'll take here is, how have you revised your front and back end staff incentive plans as a result of payment plans or self-administered payment plans?
Yeah, and that one's a little bit harder for me since we outsource our revenue cycle operations to Conifer Health. So I honestly don't know what they do for their incentive plans.
Gotcha. And we'll move on down the line here. So this attendee asked, what system are they using to do estimates today? I think, what system are you using to do estimates?
So the majority of our estimates are produced from the TransUnion ClearIQ.
Got it. And so for our next question here, so the attendee asked, for pre-registered services, what is the percentage of patients you found that pay in full at time of service versus those who set up a payment plan?
Yeah, and I would say that, I don't have good statistics on that today. I mean, this is part of our journey. We are capturing, numbers of payment plans, but I don't have that at my fingertips. I would tell you that our point of service collections in total has great opportunity. And while we're trying to get to that 2 to 3% of net patient revenue, we do have a hill to climb there. So we will be tracking our payment plans versus payment in full. We'll also be tracking our overall point of service collection rate, but I don't have those numbers handy.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And how is, this attendee asked, how is monthly service fee determined? How do you determine percentage of amount owed?
The service fee is flat, so it's just a set $395 that we charge per month per payment, and so it's not based upon balance.
Great, thanks for those clarifications. And we'll move on to another question here. So what challenges do you see utilizing your current estimate system, which is based off of median amount and not a definite amount? Is there high utilization for your estimate system currently?
We do have high utilization. I think that our challenges are like anybody else's. It's really based upon what the physician orders and how our contracts are built and the charge history and all those things, the benefits and all of that. So as we're trying to get to that place where we don't have to talk to the patient about it if they want to go online and see their estimate, as we advance to that, we need to have our accuracy shored up. And so what we're doing with that is that we're putting CPT codes into the process based upon the accuracy of the estimate. So certain CPT codes will qualify, certain CPT codes that aren't quite as accurate will then have a person that it will explain it and will go more for a down payment than off the estimate. So we're customizing it based upon what we know to be true accuracy versus not.
Great. And so this attendee asks, what kind of positive feedback have you received from patients related to the payment plan, user interface, and Flywire?
So our CFOs and our VPs in the markets they have reported that the patients are engaging, that they like the change in the statements, they like the change in the options. It's also that reverse, that you don't have the complaints coming in either. And so in the balance of they like the layout, they like the connection component, and the complaints are going down, is our conclusion that our patients are receptive to this change.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And so this attendee asks, are the extended pay plans still in your AR?
So that's our next phase. So that is where we're going to go. That is the exact question that we are proposing to our team at the moment, to determine at what point will we take that off our AR. And so I would tell you that's a work in progress, and we have lots of people that are weighing in with opinions on that.
Great. Thanks for revisiting that for us. And so this next question is about unscheduled areas. So what about unscheduled areas such as emergency department visit? Would these patients who already have a subscription add the ED visit bill or copay into their balance?
Yeah, so John, do you want to talk about the way that works with additional balances?
Yeah, so yeah, and I think there's a couple different options there. If there's new balances, there's what's called a roll-upper. So patients will receive that self-service, but in the example that you gave in the ER, it really depends on what the user, any user throughout the system, has the privileges to see and do, right? So if you want them just taking payments and they don't have visibility to the payment arrangement they're already on, then those payments will just be taken and applied against the account. But the other users, regardless of where they are, if you want to give them the privileges of seeing the plan and making it a collection event of adding that to their existing plan, it's all there. So it's all part of the same system, regardless of where they are in the point of care and how they're paying.
Great. And so this next question here is, have you considered charging interest on some plans?
We have not considered charging interest. So since we're looking at line of credit as the extension, and they already have a good payment history, and we already have a service fee on the monthly payment, we are not looking at that at this time.
Got it. So the next attendee asks, have you tracked the call center volume impact? Has there been tangible decrease in inbound?
We are tracking that, and we are seeing a decrease in our call volume. We're seeing some of the call volume shift, from I'd like to make a payment plan to more of I need help at understanding the charges. And so it's changing. And so it's also lending us to the fact that insight, where do we want to go with that? Where do you go when you want to question your charges, or you want somebody to explain those to you? You understand your patient portion, you understand your statement, you understand your options, but we haven't really provided patients a good way to understand the charges. So that's something else we need to consider. Payment plan, calling into call centers for payment plans has decreased.
Thank you. And we've got just a few minutes left here, so probably just take a couple more questions. So how long did it take to implement your program?
So initially, it took about 6 months, and that was building out all of the programs and everything else. We actually got 70 hospitals in 9 months live. So once we were foundationally solid, we were able to launch pretty quickly, and that was across multiple EMRs. So overall, we had the majority live within 9 months.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. And our next question here is, when you consolidate accounts on a single statement, are you still able to age at the account level?
we can age at the account level. I mean, everything, so the roll-up of the statements of the guarantor and all of that, Flywire takes care of that. We still have, oh dear, I'm getting feedback. We still have all of our AR systems are at an account level for all of that reporting.
Yeah, and just one thing I'll add there,
Thank
Leslie,
you.
is the cash posting on the back end is important for that. So when you're in an account-based system like a Meditech or a Star or otherwise, the posting, on a single payment has to make sure it gets posted to each of those accounts at the rules. So that's another component that's really important to manage on the back end, especially with lockbox payments.
Good point.
Yeah, some helpful stuff to understand there. And the next question here is, so how do you manage payment posting when an estimate and self-pay balance are both on a single payment plan?
I must have been I think we just answered that, right? So I was a profit on that one. So.
Gotcha. Yep. And great. I think we've basically covered everything. We might have time for just one last question here. So how are your patients reacting to the service fee?
We were really worried about that, and especially being a faith-based organization, we were concerned about it. And so it was something that we watched really closely. I would tell you that since we started back in 2018, we probably have had 5 or 6 patients that really did not like it. They had been paying all along without it. They didn't understand it, and they really didn't like it. And so when you think about the size of CHI, that's a really small percentage. So our thought is that we really have gotten the positive side of it, the patient reaction with actually paying and our numbers going up, and our complaints are almost non-existent.
Excellent. And thanks for sharing a bit about your journey today, Leslie. And Leslie, John, do either of you have any final thoughts?
I just appreciate the time here, and if you ever need to reach out to me, I'm available to answer any other questions.
Yeah, and thanks for all the questions on here. It's great questions, and I'm glad we allowed enough time to have Leslie answer those. So thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you both again, and that's all the time we have for today. And yeah, it was a great presentation, and I also want to thank Flywire for sponsoring today's webinar. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to having you join us for future webinars.
Thank you all.
Thank you.